Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this evening for the Resource Mobilization and Grant Writing webinar. My name is Roella. I am the Senior Manager of the Clubs program here at Generation On, and I'm really excited to share information that I have about grants and grant writing. So my experience with grants started when I was serving in the Peace Corps. I served 2 years in Kyrgyzstan. And I was able to write a lot of different grants that were available to volunteers, and also act in a grant review committee. So we reviewed a lot of different grants, and I got a lot of exposure to different types of grants as well as different project proposals, and I have used that knowledge here at Generation On as I help manage the grant administration process here. So again, really excited to share what I know and my experience with resource mobilization and grant writing. So let's jump in. So today, this is an overview of all the information that I'm going to be sharing with you. The first part of the webinar is all about identifying and mobilizing resources. And then the second part and the majority of the webinar will be on grant writing tips and tricks. So, identifying, before we talk about mobilizing resources, we need to talk about what different kinds of resources are available to you in your communities to help you with your service projects. So we have 3 different types. We have people, organizations, and community institutions. So first off, people. All people have a talent, a skill, or some sort of expertise in a different area. And despite what you might be thinking, every single community is diverse. Traditionally, people think of race when we talk about diversity, but when I talk about diversity, I want to be inclusive of different age groups, genders, socioeconomic statuses, professions, educational backgrounds, abilities, and talents. So even if you think you have a very racially non-diverse community, there's still a lot of diversity in there. And just an example, a lot of people might overlook retired folks as a resource to them, but retired people have a lot of experience. Some have had multiple different career paths within their lifetime, and have a lot of knowledge and skill sets to share with young people. Additionally, retired folks, hopefully, if they're not engaged in a ton of other activities, will also have time to be able to dedicate to the service projects that you're doing. Also, people that you are looking for with different talents and expertise that you don't really know, like who you can turn to, your networks can maybe connect you with other people. So if you don't know someone, maybe someone in your network knows someone. So again, that's another way that people can be a resource for you. Secondly, organizations. These include nonprofits and for-profit organizations. They're places and businesses that have services that already benefit the community. We have a young gentleman named Ryan Schrainer. He is dedicated to alleviating illiteracy and promoting literacy throughout his community, making sure that kids are really excited to engage in reading. People know what different resources are available at libraries and things like that. So he works closely with a lot of local libraries and a lot of youth development organizations to further the work that they're already doing. So instead of trying to branch off and do something else, he taps into a couple of community resources that are doing things that he's really passionate about and wanted to see how their work aligned and could grow further. Additionally, these different organizations definitely have subject-based matter knowledge that are things you might be looking for. So for example, if your youth are really interested in addressing homelessness and poverty in your community, and you might not exactly have the skills, the subject knowledge about the different levels of homelessness or the different causes of homelessness, you might want to invite someone from the Department of Homeless Services into your into your space, or someone from a nonprofit who works at a food pantry, or someone from a church who plans different programs and initiatives to benefit the homeless community, to gain their insight, to bring a different perspective so that your group of youth can learn more about the social issues that they care about. Additionally, organizations offer physical space. So meetings, events, and trainings all need to happen somewhere, and organizations are a great resource to have to find space for your needs. Lastly, community institutions. These include public services and spaces, these such as hospitals, clinics, early childhood education centers. These are all things that are available to help benefit the whole community. This could even include the postal service, the trash collections, trash collectors. So these are all things to be mindful of when you're thinking of ways you need support to make your community service project successful. And our last webinar was actually about community mapping, and it really goes through in-depth how to help youth identify and locate where these community resources are available in the community. So this webinar, we're talking about resource mobilization, how to get those resources to work with you. But the webinar that we had previously was all about figuring out where they are in the first place. So if you want more information about that, the community mapping webinar, please look at generationon.org. And the webinar has been archived and is available for your viewing at whatever time is convenient for you. All right, so now that we've figured out what kind of resources there are in our community, let's now talk about how to mobilize resources. So I've outlined 4 different steps here that I found to be the most helpful when working with community partners to get things for your service project. So number 1, you want to make sure that you identify different supporters and organizations that you can potentially partner with. And the potential organizations could either be mission aligned to what your project is trying to achieve, or just, have some sort of asset that you're looking to use. Then, once you've identified those people and those organizations, you want to look for door openers. You want to find people who can give you a foot in the door at that organization and make an introduction to those decision makers. The decision makers are the people who can say yes or no, I want to help you, or I can't help you, but I can point you to someone who may be able to help you. So again, first identify those organizations and those supporters, then identify the door openers and decision makers. Then after you've done that, you want to start preparing what you're going to say. So as you're planning on how to market what you're trying to do and figure out how to ask what you're looking for, things you want to be mindful of when you're preparing either your elevator pitch or your letters or your phone scripts is you want to make sure you're including your project goal. What exactly are you trying to accomplish with your service project? You want to include the ask. What are you looking to get from this organization, from this partner, from the supporter to make your project successful? And lastly, you want to be explicit and explain, why did you come to them in particular for help? What about the organization, what about the person drew you to them? Is it because they believe in the same things as you do? Because they're seen as very valuable people in the community? Because of their reputation for helping others? What is it about this organization, this person, these partners that really wanted you to foster this relationship? And lastly, you want to make sure that you maintain this relationship. So even if you don't get anything from them at the end of the day, you still want to make sure you are inviting them to any events or any projects that you're organizing. You want to keep them in the loop with what's going on with you, because you never know when you're going to need their support. So let's go through an example. Our Make Your Mark on Hunger campaign is coming up during the month of March and April, so I wanted to offer up a hunger project example. So in our example, we have a group of youth who want to organize a monthly farmers market to bring seasonal fruits and vegetables to their community. So some of the basic resources that we might need to host a monthly farmers market include obviously farmers, people that will bring the produce to the community, a large space to host the market. It could be a parking lot, it could be a schoolyard, but any sort of large space that can hold up to 10, 15, 20 tables, depending on how many farmers we can get and vendors. Next, you want to figure out how you're going to advertise. Advertise the event to the community members as well as advertise it to farmers. Next, you're going to want some sort of tables or tents or chairs to help with the farmers set up and display and sell their produce. And the last resource that I could think of was volunteers. You're going to want some help to help manage the crowd, answer the questions of the farmers and the vendors that you've invited, and just really help put the event together on a month-by-month basis. So let's look at how we can secure a large space to host the market. We're going to go through the 4 different steps and figure out how we can secure this one basic resource from the community. All right, so again, the first step, we want to identify who are the supporters and the potential partner organizations that we can work with. And these are people, if we're looking for a large space, again, I had mentioned, it's either someone that has a large parking lot, a schoolyard, a park, a public square. Make a long list of all these different organizations and what they are. So then you would look again for the door openers. Who are the people in your network that you already know that are either working in these different institutions or organizations, and see if they can make an introduction to the decision makers of those particular organizations. And the decision makers would be directors, principals, lead pastors if you're talking to churches, and people that are responsible for like community engagement and potentially public relations if you want to engage with someone who manages public spaces. And then during the third step, you want to start preparing what you're going to say, the marketing aspect. So again, you're going to want to include your project goals. So you're going to want to explain that you want to bring seasonal fruits and vegetables to the community. You might want to explain why you think this is a great need that you see. And you're going to want to be explicit about like the scale of the project, the number of vendors you hope to invite, the number of community members you hope to benefit from this project, and if applicable, if this project has some sort of education component where you're educating others about nutrition, maybe indicate that in the project as well. And then the second part is you want to start prepping the ask. What are you hoping to gain? Again, we're looking for a large space to host this monthly market. So you're going to say that that's what you're looking for to make your project a success. And lastly, the third part of my pitch or the letter that I would be crafting, the third part that I want to be mindful of is, again, I want to include why I'm seeking support from this particular organization, this school, this church, this park. Why in particular do I think that they would be a benefit to the success of this project and the benefit overall to the whole community? So it could be that, again, that the organizations have aligned missions and values. It could be that the schools are all about educating, the community at large, and this would definitely help educate the community on healthy fruits and vegetables and options that they have for them. And so those are the types of information you're going to want to include. And then once you send that out, either face-to-face, through the phone, via email, or anything like that, once that's all out, you want to make sure that you are maintaining that relationship. Again, if you don't get anything out of it, you still want to make sure that you're keeping them in the loop, sending them regular emails, inviting them to events, or anything like that, because you never know in the future when they could either be an asset to you or a connection with someone else. So that is an example of how to mobilize a resource, a community resource, to help your service project. But what if that's not enough? What if you can't get everything for free? Because realistically, that's probably not going to happen. There are 3 things that we suggest you do. So number 1 is you can fundraise. Generation On has a list of different fundraising ideas, different events and gimmicks that you can do to help raise money to support your service project. Number 2, you can find a sponsor who, again, is either currently engaging in projects that are similar to yours or supporting the social issues that you really care about that are aligned with the work that you're trying to do. You can try to find financial support from a sponsor through that way, or you can apply for a grant. And we're going to spend the rest of this webinar talking about grant writing, but just to give you some background information, grants are free money from corporations, nonprofits, and governments. And most grants that I've seen anyway, are tied to still a specific mission or purpose that's defined by the funder. So for example, Generation On is in partnership with C&S Wholesale Grocers. They're obviously a grocery store. And they have given us money to run the Make Your Mark on Hunger campaign. So C&S Wholesale Grocers gave us money and are saying, like, we have this lump sum that we want to give to you so that you can administer it to youth in the United States to make, so that they can complete service projects addressing hunger. So C&S Wholesale Grocer is the corporate funder for us, and Generation On is acting as the grant administrator. So all of the grant money that we give away for the Make Your Mark on Hunger campaign obviously have to do with hunger-related projects. So this is just one example of how grant money is always tied to fulfilling some sort of purpose. We also have the Verizon STEM grants, and Verizon charged Generation On to give away grant money for people to complete STEM-related service projects. So all of the grant funding that we're giving to people from the Verizon grant is all about science, technology, engineering, and math. And just to be mindful, a lot of the times when you're acting as a grant administrator like Generation On, we are charged with selecting the grantees, distributing the funds, and creating a final report to send back to the corporate funder. That's going to be an important thing to be mindful of as you're going through the grant writing process, and I will go into more depth into that in a little bit. But first, how do we find local grants? I suggest first starting with local nonprofits that are working in the areas that you're really interested in. So for example, if you are really focused on literacy and alleviating or addressing literacy issues, you want to make sure that you are working with you are linked with every nonprofit that has to do with reading, academic excellence, libraries, writing, creative writing, any sort of nonprofit in those spheres. You want to make sure that you get onto their listservs, you receive their newsletters, have joined their Facebook groups, and follow their Twitters. Because grants run in cycles, and generally there aren't many grants that are just open and money is accessible all the time. But you want to make sure that you are in the different chains of communication, so when grants do open up, that you are aware of them. So first, you have to figure out who might be giving grants away for the social issues that you really care about. So again, doing your research and then getting on their chains of communication. Again, listservs and newsletters is definitely one way nonprofits send out all of their announcements as well as their different grant opportunities. And Facebook groups, social media with Facebook groups and Twitter, they'll definitely be showcasing either grant opportunities or people that have received grants or things like that. So you want to make sure you're in the loop so that when opportunities do arise, you are in the know. All right, so let's get into grant writing. I've come up with these 4 tips that I've seen people make the most mistakes in when reviewing grants. And this is not only in Generation On grants, but also in the Peace Corps. And before I jump into the 4 tips or 4 characteristics that I see, the one thing I did want to let everybody know is you should keep in mind that when you're crafting your grant proposal, really think clearly about who your reader is. And this is something that I see if you're just mindful of who you're writing this for, a lot of what comes out onto your proposal will definitely be written in a certain characteristic to make sure that it's crafted to the reader. And for example, what I mean by that is just think of it similar to a job application. When you're writing a job application, you're crafting your cover letter, you want to show that the employer that these are all the skills and talents and experience that I have, and this is how I'm going to fit into your organization. So if you think about a grant proposal similar to that way, you are writing a grant proposal to show how your project aligns with an organization and how your work is going to further the work that they're already interested and invested in. All right, so let's jump in. So the first characteristic that I want to talk about is alignment. You want to make sure that your project proposal aligns with what the funder is trying to accomplish. So a lot of this information will obviously be in the grant application packet. So for example, make your mark on hunger. Every project that we see has to obviously be a part of addressing the issue of hunger. Verizon, you want to make sure that the grant applications we see for the Verizon STEM grant are STEM-related service initiatives. So those are all very clear, but also you want to look at the mission vision of the funders and see how you can weave in that language into your grant proposal. Because again, you want to show that your grant aligns with the work that the funders are already trying to do. Secondly, you want to make sure that your proposal is innovative. Funders are going to be reading a lot of different applications, and you want to make sure that your proposal stands out through an out-of-the-box innovative idea. What you can do to see if your project is out of the box is research past projects. A lot of the times, funders will have people that they've funded in the past highlighted either on their website or through their social media. And you can even approach a funder and say, like, is this a project creative enough? Is this what you're looking for? As a funder, we definitely appreciate when we get people who call in and ask us for feedback. Also, again, being mindful that some nonprofits are charged to act as a grant administrator for these corporate dollars. So again, using Generation On as an example, during the Make Your Mark on Hunger campaign, CNS Wholesale Grocers is the people giving us the corporate dollars, but Generation On is the one administering it. But Generation On, at the end of the day, is responsible in telling CNS Wholesale Grocers what we did with the money, what the youth did with the money, what were their impact goals, and things like that. And we have seen so many projects, and we want to make sure that the stories we share with CNS Wholesale Grocers create a really great story. We want to make sure that the number of people that they've impacted and benefit are a lot, that the projects are very different and diverse, because we can't tell CNS Grocers that we gave all of their corporate dollars for people to do canned food drives. That's not a great story to tell. So again, I cannot emphasize innovation in your proposal writing enough. It's really, really important to think outside of the box, and if you're not sure, reach out to the organization and ask for feedback. Thirdly, you want to make sure that your goals and outcomes are measured. We don't like seeing big goals. So for example, again with the Make Your Mark on Hunger, if I said my goal was, I'm going to educate youth on the issue of hunger, that is very vague. And what that shows me as a grant reviewer is that you haven't really thought out your project, because you can't give me something more detailed. But the writer of the grant, the proposer of the grant, might have actually thought this out. They just didn't write it in a way that conveyed it. So when you're writing out your goals and your outcomes, you really want to make them as smart as possible, meaning specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and time-bound. There are tons of information online about how to create SMART goals, but definitely we want them to be as specific as possible. And again, it's to show us that you thought through this thoroughly and intentionally. Again, you also want to make sure that the goals and the outcomes are aligned with what the funder measures. So, Generation On sees volunteering as a strategy to help youth grow in 21st century skills and social emotional competencies. Those are our measurements of success. So if we see that language, that this service project will help improve 21st century skills or social emotional competencies in your youth or community outcomes, we know that your work is aligned with our work. And again, that'll make you seem more inclined to be funded if your work is aligned with us and what we measure. And lastly, you want to make sure you create a very reasonable budget. You want to make sure that the outcomes and the goals laid out in the proposal are worth the money. And again, it's because we have to go back, at Generation On has to go back to our corporate funders and say, this is the outcome of the money that you gave us. And we want to make sure that those corporate dollars were stretched and benefited the most people as possible. So if you have a grant proposal where you're asking for $5,000 to do some fancy project, but at the end of the day, your goal is to only benefit 10 people, $5,000 to benefit 10 people doesn't sound like a reasonable use of our money. So you just want to make sure, again, that what you're asking for is reasonable for the outcomes that the project hopes to attain. So those are the 4 characteristics, and let's go through an example. So again, we have the Verizon STEM grant. It's currently open right now, and the application closes on February 27th. And this grant, again, is looking to fund STEM-related service projects. So Kids Care Club, here's my project idea, is proposing to learn about electrical circuits. They want to use their knowledge to design and create fun, brightly lit safety vests for community cyclists so that these cyclists can be seen riding around at night. So they are asking for $500 to fund electrical circuit materials, lights, and vests. Great. So here is the skeleton of the grant proposal. The grant proposal will always ask for a project description. Here they said cyclists in the community have been injured for various reasons. 10 club members want to help cyclists get noticed. So the club members will learn about electrical circuits and design 10 vests that light up. They will donate these vests to cyclists in their community center. Here it specifies the project goals. So it says 10 youth will learn how to design and make safety vests for cyclists. Additionally, 10 cyclists will ride safer at night. Their youth and community outcomes, again, these are things that they hope to achieve as a result of their service project. So youth will learn about electrical circuits and safety. The community will become more aware of cyclists, and for their budget, you will always have to include a budget in a grant application. It says they want $200 for vests and supplies, $100 for snacks, $150 for club t-shirts, and $50 for gas. Great, so now we're going to go over the 4 different criteria to see how this skeleton proposal stacks up. So is the project aligned with Generation On? So yes, it is service-oriented. They specify the community need that their project is addressing, and it is a STEM-oriented proposal because, again, this is for the Verizon STEM grant. We're looking for, again, service projects that utilize science, technology, engineering, and math to benefit the community. Great. On the other hand, if you look at Generations On mission and vision, you'll see that we are focused on youth-led service initiatives. So one way to have improved the project description and the proposal overall is to be really clear about how this project could have been youth-led. Because right now it doesn't really say what the youth are taking ownership of and what the organizer or the grant writer is taking ownership of. Additionally, again, I had mentioned that Generation On uses service as a strategy to help youth improve 21st century skills and social emotional competencies. Under the youth outcomes, it does not say anything about this, so that would have also been, if the grant writer included this language, it would have definitely strengthened the application. Also, no, that's actually all I want to say about that. All right, is this project innovative? So Generation On looks at 13 different social issues on our website, and you can see all the different projects that we have created to help youth really hit the ground running when it comes to service. But Generation On does not have a current project guide on electrical circuits, so that's definitely a plus and is definitely innovative in that manner. However, I love seeing service projects that are a double hitter. Is there any way that this service initiative could have expanded what it was doing without asking for more money? So for example, could they have added an educational component? Could they have talked with cyclists and maybe learned about what are some of the benefits of, a light up vest and the design and things like that versus just creating things from scratch? Additionally, to further benefit the community, maybe they could have created a bicycle safety session, or they could have also tried to lobby for wider bike lanes. So again, this project is definitely innovative because Generation On doesn't have projects where we use electrical circuits to create light up vests, but then at the same time, to strengthen this, you could have added additional ways to increase the complexity of the service project and not necessarily add it to the dollars that you need in the budget. Okay, so does the project have measurable goals and outcomes? Let's see. So let's look at the project goals. It says 10 youth will learn how to design and make safety vests. It also says 10 cyclists will ride safer at night. So yes, the goals are measurable. They are quantified. As you see, they say 10 youth, 10 cyclists. However, they're a little vague. They're a little vague. They're not as smart. Both the outcomes and the goals aren't very specific. They could definitely be measured a little bit more. And it would definitely help if you had attached a timeline for when you were going to do this, or a deadline, I'm sorry, about when you're going to achieve all of this. So again, creating SMART goals and outcomes really help the grant reviewer see that you've thought through your service project really thoroughly and are really intentional about how you're going to get this done. It shows us that you've put in the effort. And again, grant money is free money, so make sure you take the time to write a good grant proposal. All right, is the project reasonable given the budget and the outcome? So again, looking down at the bottom, they're asking for $500, $200 for vests and supplies, $100 for snacks, $150 for club shirts, and $50 for gas. So if we do the math, overall it would have been about $50 per vest, because they're asking for $500 to make 10 vests. However, things that aren't explained and definitely should be explained in the budget or the project description is how are you using snacks, shirts, and gas to make, why are they necessary to make this project successful? Sometimes we definitely see project descriptions that don't align with the budget. The project description says like they are going to make like a nutrition class or something like that, but then the bottom it says they want money for yoga mats. So you want to make sure that it's clear to the reader why things are included. And again, we can't read your mind, so the more you say in the grant proposal, the better. Additionally, one way to strengthen this budget would have been to include in-kind donations. In-kind donations are things that people are giving to you for free to support your project. So for example, if in this instance, if they were having some engineering expert to show the youth how to create these electrical circuits, that person's time, if they're giving it to you for free and are volunteering for the project, is an in-kind donation that you can say like, this person is $50 an hour, they're giving us 3 hours, so we have $150 of someone's time donated. And as a grant reviewer, we definitely love seeing what type of support your community is showing you, because this shows us that the project is definitely more sustainable because of all that buy-in and investment that other people have for you. Additionally, for the most part, grants should not provide 100% of the funding. They should definitely be there to supplement and support, but grants should not cover 100% of the expenses because it shows us that the projects aren't sustainable. So these are like one and dones when in reality what we hope to see and want to see are things that will last once the funding is run out. All right, so just to recap, different ways that we could have improved the Verizon STEM skeleton grant proposal that we quickly reviewed is alignment. You want to make sure that you incorporate Generations on mission and vision and measured goals and things like that, and the purpose of the grant into your proposal. You want to make sure that you show them how you're aligned as often as you can. Additionally, you want to make sure that the project is innovative. Again, designing electrical circuits is really, really creative, but at the same time, we would have loved to see a little bit more complexity, either an education component or an advocacy component would have made the application stronger. Thirdly, you want to make the goals and the outcomes smart and measured and aligned with Generations on outcomes that we measure as well. Lastly, you want to make sure that your budget is reasonable and everything that you're asking for is explained within the grant proposal. So again, this grant proposal didn't explain why they needed gas. It did not explain why they needed shirts, and it did not explain why they needed snacks. And this, you might think that, you know, t-shirts or snacks are pretty intuitive as to like, oh, it's time for them to like look like a team or look like one, and the snacks are obviously for the times that they're gathering, but they can definitely also be used in different ways. And if you explain it, like if you want to present your electrical circuits design at like a public fair and you want these shirts so that your group can stand out, that shows us a lot more. So you just want to make sure that all of these things within your budget are explained, because all they can do is help support what you're trying to do in the grant reviewer's eyes. And again, in the budget, whenever possible, include what types of in-kind donations you have already solicited and obtained for your project. So that is all the information that I wanted to share with you. And just to recap, we talked about identifying resources, the people, the organizations, and the institutions that already exist in your community to help you implement a successful project. We talked about how to mobilize these resources, again, through identifying them, looking for door openers and decision makers, crafting what you're going to say, and maintaining those relationships are all really important steps to mobilizing resources. Then we talked about if those resources weren't enough, where could you find financial support? And again, I said get on as many chains of communication, listservs, social media, Facebook pages, Twitters, so you can follow people and organizations that support work that you, similar work that you already do, so that when they do release grant opportunities, you're already in the know. Lastly, we spent the majority of the time talking about how to write a winning grant proposal. And again, you just want to make sure that it's clear how your project is aligned with the organization, how it's innovative, how your goals are measurable, and how your budget is reasonable. So I hope all of this information was really helpful for you all. And if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to us. And we're happy to discuss and review any grant proposals that you write before you submit them. And just coming up, we have our next webinar on March 28th. It is all about putting youth in the driver's seat. Again, Generation On is all about youth-led service experiences. So we're going to talk about how to really capitalize on youth taking ownership of what they're trying to do, and caring adults taking a guiding and advising seat and not the steering seat of the service experience. And again, the Verizon grants are currently accepting applications. You have until the 27th of February to submit your proposal. And we also have the Make Your Mark on Hunger campaign running from March to April. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, that is it. I hope you all enjoyed this webinar, and thank you for your time.